The Time magazine piece, of course, first of all, it's Donald Trump. I mean, I tweeted out saying, obviously, the finalists included Kamala Harris, which would have been an absurdity. Even if Trump lost, you could make the case that it should have been Trump, given, the assassination attempt and all of that. But, I mean, you have to stop for a moment and just say, what a turnaround. I mean, Time magazine had that picture on the cover of him with the golf cart right before the election, like trouble, and was part of the media that was calling him Hitler and fascist. And now, person of the year, how did you do it, Mr. President? What do we make of it?
Well, I was sort of pleased that Time magazine still prints a printed issue. It's only like when you see a actual noteworthy person like Donald Trump being man of the year that that they actually still print the magazine. Right. I didn't know that previously.
Yeah, I mean, there may be a handful of faded issues sitting on like a Jiffy Lube coffee table out there somewhere. But to be honest with you, Megyn, your reaction obviously is the right one. I mean, Trump is the man of the year. We didn't need Time magazine to tell us that. I think it's sort of a outdated credential from a legacy media property that's been a cadaver for who knows how long. Like the last time I actually picked up a Time magazine, it might have been during the cloning debate in the 90s.
Well, and he dominated news highs and lows. I mean, this is a guy who was indicted, 47 times in 3 jurisdictions over the early part of this year. He, 2 attempted assassination attempts. He clinches the nomination, all of these sort of things, and then, becomes president of the United States again. I don't think there's any man in American politics who's been more doubted than Donald Trump, and he proved everyone wrong. I had my doubts myself at various times when it didn't look so super good for him.
Right.
The man overcame all of it.
Yeah, no question.
I mean, I will say for the record, I said it was going to be Trump all along. Did I? Do you guys remember that? I mean, I said it was going to be him.
Of course.
Very prescient.
Who won the nomination and the election. So he does make a fair amount of news in the interview. That he gave them an interview in connection with the selection. And one of the things he says is they get into how he decided on his abortion stance to leave it to the states. And apparently this is what they report. He was in the private cabin of his plane flying on April 2nd to a campaign rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan, when he picked up a document that Susie Wiles, campaign manager, now chief of staff, had placed atop a stack of papers. The heading was not subtle. How a national abortion ban will cost Trump the election. Trump raised his eyebrows, quote, kind of a nasty title, huh, he said. Before he considered the memo, Trump had been on the verge of supporting a 16-week federal abortion ban. Think about that, how that could have changed this election. Kellyanne Conway is another advisor, had showed him polling indicating that barring the procedure after 16 weeks was more popular than making the limit 24. But Trump's speechwriter and policy advisor, Vince Haley, had raised an objection on a late March conference call, according to 3 people present. Quote, does he know that the 16-week ban will be stricter than existing law in a lot of the states? There was a silence. Probably not, said Trump's political director, James Blair. After flipping through Blair's presentation on the plane, Trump perked his head up. So we leave it up to the states, right? Advisors agreed. Great, said Trump. We'll do a video. Within a few minutes, he was dictating his remarks to Haley. I do believe you guys were on this show right after he did that, right? And we had a debate about his stance on abortion, how it had disappointed some of the more established conservatives in the party, but defended it here as smart politics, given the state of the electorate, the mood of the country on this issue. It is amazing how Trump got a couple of data points. Everything for him is transactional. This one's not deep in his core. He's like, what's going to get me elected? And that's where he landed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes to show a couple of things. One is that he was getting good advice on this campaign all the way through. I mean, they ran a really good campaign, and all you can ever ask for any candidate that's running an office of that level is to get a myriad of viewpoints and paint the full picture before a decision is made. It sounds like in this case, that's exactly what he got on a very contentious issue. It's also where he landed is consistent with where the American people have been for 50 years, right? I mean, you've had this Roe v. Wade decision that had this big sort of federal overlap over all the states legalizing abortion. preventing any sort of restrictions there within the states. And then when that was overturned, it was kicked back to everything the pro-life movement had argued for those 40 years, that it should go back to states and localities, and people should make these decisions on their own. There shouldn't be this one-sided federal government that flips back and forth every 4 years depending upon who wins elections, outlawing something as significant as abortion in here. So I think he landed, honestly, in the only place that you could land on a really contentious issue like this in the context of the 2 years after Dobbs and the first presidential election since.
It saved him, given how much she highlighted that issue and how big it became, even with Trump saying, I'm not going to touch it. It was a huge campaign issue. Imagine if he had been pushing a 16-week ban. I mean, it really could have changed the course of this election. Here's another couple nuggets. Pretty interesting. How advisors got him to stop bashing early voting. Oh, look who's here.
Mugglesworth, ladies and gentlemen.
Johnny Come Smugly has shown up for the party. Great to see you.
Good to be here. And can I suggest for President Trump, please ban all motorcades in D.C. while the Megyn Kelly Show is being recorded. I would greatly appreciate that.
It's a simple request, sir. How they got him to stop bashing early voting. This was such an irritant for almost every Republican who's been watching elections. Why is he bashing early voting? It is the only way we're ever going to win again. Run up the vote, get our people in there early. Don't bank on election day voting because it rains, they have sick kids, work calls, whatever. And sure enough, this time around, the Republicans did show up early and Trump won. So it was such a hard thing. It's not like Trump hadn't heard that it's a good idea to encourage Republicans to vote early. He just wouldn't do it. He just refused. In his core, he seemed to believe fraud happens if you mail in your vote or if you vote before Election Day. And what they report is that it took a visit from Rob Gleason, former chair of the Pennsylvania Republican Party, to frame the matter in terms that made Trump agree. And I have to say, this is brilliant. This is brilliant because this is how you have to talk to Trump, to sort of get through to him the way his mind works. Sir, your people are so excited to vote for you that they want to vote as soon as they can, Gleason told him during an April meeting at Mar-a-Lago, according to two top Trump officials familiar. They don't want to wait, but you got to tell them it's okay. You got to give them permission. From then on, Trump promoted absentee and early voting and directed the RNC to launch a mobilization drive targeting male voters. That's so good. Your people are so excited to vote for you. They want to do it as soon as they can. You just got to give them the green light. Like, they're chomping at the bit, sir. Give the people what they want, which is to vote Trump at the earliest second possible. It's a show of enthusiasm for you. And that was the way in that worked, guys.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it happens to be true. I mean, everybody was excited to get out and vote for him. That's why he won the popular vote. And there was some confusion about whether that people should be voting early, whether they shouldn't be voting early. When Trump announced that he was for it, it not only cleared up the confusion, but what he built and what they built at the RNC to turn out the vote was monumental. Charlie Kirk did a lot on this. And in Pennsylvania, what a contrast between how President Trump listened to a guy from Pennsylvania who was telling him how to win the state, and Kamala Harris, who refused to even put the governor of Pennsylvania on her ticket. It was a real difference maker. And the one other thing I'll say, Megyn, there's a common theme here with the two topics that you pulled out of this article. The first one, Trump knew he needed to win, and he wanted to win so bad he's willing to do anything. Same thing with this. He knew that he had to do something different to change the outcome this time and not have it taken from him the way Democrats did in 2020.
Yeah, I will say I had a little bit of experience with this because I remember, I had the opportunity to have a lot of visits with President Trump in his first term, and towards the end, when states were changing all of their voting rules to try to accommodate COVID. And as we've since found out, many of them totally irresponsibly and without proper controls and anything else. He was watching all that in real time. And so his reaction to early voting, it is a whole bunch of issues. One of the reasons why I think he's going to be a really good president the second 4 years, it's based on a life experience. he didn't spend a life watching politics and watching turnout mechanisms and being an operative. He knew what he experienced in 2020 when people were changing all kinds of early voting rules that obviously benefited Democrats a great deal, and he knew he opposed that. And so I think you recontextualize that now to a whole bunch of states that actually put in safeguards and had competent elections, California notwithstanding. Arizona, you can make some questions about, although, they got to the right spot. Ultimately, once those are in place, you can make a very logical case. And this is not something he had an ideological opposition to in the sense of his own election. He just knew how it worked out the first time.
Well, and if you look back to previous elections before Donald Trump, the Republican Party won elections in states like Arizona on, the backbone of their turnout operation, which was absentee by mail and early vote in person. And so getting back to that, of course, was a huge advantage in 2020 because, Trump said only vote on election day is like swinging a weighted bat. Like we made it harder on ourselves. And then lo and behold, he does this and he wins the popular vote, not just all of the battleground swing states. And then I want to say as well, I think Trump did a great job getting on board with absentee by mail and early vote, but what a fantastic messenger was J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance did an incredible job on the stump, on the trail, talking about the mechanics of early voting and absentee by mail.
Never missed an opportunity.
Never missed an opportunity. Never missed a media hit to mention it, and he did a fantastic job.
For those of us who have been holding our breath for the past several months, waiting for this election, we can finally exhale. Work can now be done on the major issues this country's facing, one of the most significant being our national debt. The fact is our nation's broke, and that debt is a house of cards that cannot be quickly dismantled. So the strategy for you probably remains the same when it comes to your investments. You might want to diversify your savings. This is why I want to tell you about Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control, out of our president's control, so it can be important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. And the best news is it does not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. Text MK to 989898 to get your free info kit on gold. Plus, right now you will receive a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased. Protect your savings with Birch Gold and text MK to 989898 to claim your eligibility for free silver today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.